Hi, I'm Cathy from Absolutely Fabulous Bed Bath & Home. Today we're going to talk about chalk paint by Annie Sloan. Chalk paint is a brand new product to us at the store, but it's been around for 25 years. It's not made of chalk. Chalk paint refers to the finish that the paint leaves when it dries. It's a matte, slightly rough finish like a chalkboard would have, but no chalk in it. Chalk paint is probably the most versatile decorative paint you will ever work with. Comes in 32 amazing colors, and these colors can be mixed to infinity. So I'm going to show you a couple of finishes. This is the smooth finish. This is a couple of coats of paint with a couple of coats of wax using a smooth brush to give you a very fine finish. Beautiful, smooth, modern finish. This is a one color distressed. So paint has been applied, let dry, sanded back slightly to show the original wood, waxed, and again a very smooth finish. Another very popular finish is the two coat distress, two color paint distress. So a base coat was applied in a very rough sort of crisscross textured fashion, a second coat of paint applied, sanded off so that you could see some of the texture of the first coat coming through, brushed off, dried, and then waxed again. So all of it feels very smooth and satiny, and that's partly because of the wax. Wax comes in two colors and two sizes, but it's a clear wax and it's a beeswax. It's very supple, has a little bit of mineral spirit in it to keep it from hardening, and a lovely, lovely soft wax to work with. Comes in the large can and a small can in both the dark wax. Oops. The dark wax is very dark. It will actually be a stainer if you were trying to change colors, but we'll show you those techniques as we go along. The paint also comes in two sizes. Comes in the big cans and in what we like to call project pots. These are the perfect size to do a little picture frame project, a chair. You could do a small chest of drawers or a cupboard or a bedside table or a side table. Really, your possibilities are endless, but we're going to work on a couple of projects in this series. First thing we're going to do, and probably the reason most people like chalk paint, is we are going to paint a kitchen door. Many people have oak doors or just dated looks in their kitchen, and they would love to change them, but we all know that changing your kitchen over is a very expensive procedure. A little paint could change that. Your prep is to completely wash and dry your doors. You don't want any dust, you don't want any grease marks, you want a perfectly clean surface. If it's something that's maybe been in your kitchen and you've had a lot of grease from the stove, you may actually want to use a degreaser. We use Dawn dish detergent because we find it has a really good grease lifter. Make sure it's really dry. So it's great to do that part the night before. You dip your brush in. You're using the tip of your brush. You're not putting it in really heavily and getting a soaked brush because you're working with the tip of the brush. You're going to work it into the corners, around the edges. And I'm going to do a slightly distressed look, so I'm not going to make it perfectly smooth everywhere. A little bit of texture in my finish. I want this to have kind of an antique look when I'm done. Go back, make sure I've got it. Do a little stippling for a little more texture. And I'm going to put that aside to dry. So now we put two coats of paint on our door. As you can see, I did a rough finish, so you can still see shadows of the dark wood underneath. If I were doing a smooth finish, I would have used, and I didn't want any texture, I would have used a flat brush. I would have done very smooth strokes with lots of paint for my two coats, and I would have covered all of that up. But because I'm going to wax it and then slightly distress it, it doesn't matter to me that I see a little bit of the corner here. So I start with a coat of clear wax, using my wax brush, shaped very much like a shaving brush, and for good reason. That tapered end means it's going to get into all the little nooks and crannies. I very quickly put a coat of wax on. You don't want a thick coat of wax. A thick coat of wax means you're just going to end up wiping most of it off and using a lot more energy to get rid of it. You're much better off to do thin coats. And if this were a cupboard door that you were going to use in a kitchen, it's going to get a lot of wear, you're probably going to want 2 or 3 coats of wax just so that it doesn't wear where your fingers touch it, or if you use the door, you know, the ends of the door to pull it open, and just to keep it protected. So I'm just going to let that wax sit for a few minutes, and then I'm going to come back and buff it. So my wax has had a minute or 2 to set up, my clear wax coat, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a buffing. And then I'm going to dab my waxing rag. Now I'm using a waxing rag that I'm prepared to throw away. You don't want to wash your waxing rags for a variety of reasons, but the most important one is that is going to actually clog up your washing machine. So these old t-shirts, anything that doesn't have a lot of lint. Now, if I don't like the way that looks, if I think, oh, that's too gray or too brown and I don't like it, because I put a clear coat of wax on first, I can take a little bit of clear wax and I can buff it out. So I can take it back to a finish that I'm happy with. I didn't want it to be quite that brown. The dark wax is a staining wax, so it will stay and darken anything I put on it. So I don't want it to be quite that dark. I just want this to have a little bit more of an antiqued finish, not a dirty finish. So there we go. And I'm just going to continue to work my whole door. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to put another coat of clear wax over it. I'm going to let it dry for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I'm going to buff it out. And if this were my kitchen cupboard door, I'd move to the next one until I had a beautifully finished kitchen.